This video is going to cover how I would run cold outreach for a marketing agency in 2026, and more importantly, what most agencies are still getting wrong about it. First, I'm going to go through the list building process and give a few examples of how to approach it and what databases to use given your specific audience. And then I'm going to talk about how you as an agency can structure your offer so it's better fit for cold traffic, including the exact type of offer that is working for marketing agencies in 2026 according to our data. And after that, I'll go into how I would actually write the email scripts. And this advice is going to be based on thousands of tests that we have conducted for marketing agencies. And then I'll talk about how I would set up the backend system, so the actual automations, and how I would conduct cold outreach from a systems perspective. And finally, I'll cover follow-ups and appointment setting. If you're running a marketing agency and you're currently doing cold outreach or looking to start soon, I promise you that this video will be the most valuable video that you watch this quarter. So first of all, a lot of people think the market is saturated and that you shouldn't be running cold outreach for your agency. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually one of the best channels to predictably get meetings. And I don't just say this, we also practice what we preach. This is how we get the vast majority of our clients here at ScaleSprint. One of the main reasons is the pure scalability of the channel, and also the fact that most people are not really nailing it. They're not putting in the required effort. So if you set up a really solid system and have good scripts and you're A/B testing consistently, you can get ahead of competition and easily book 20 to 60 calls from cold outreach as a marketing agency. But it's no longer enough to set up a basic system and use legacy tools like HubSpot, Apollo, and MailChimp. You need a modern cold outreach system that leverages multiple channels, so essentially multi-channel outreach. From the data that we've seen here at ScaleSprint, and for context, we've sent over 10 million cold emails, it's clear that in 2026, it's really important to optimize speed to lead, use multi-channel touchpoints, stay top of mind through high volume, and combine that with solid A/B tested copy. So the first thing here is list building, and list building is arguably the most important part of outreach because the list determines who receives the email. If your list is off, you can have the best copy in the world and it won't matter. Most people find a basic database, they type in random keywords, scrape the list, and then they call it a day, and that is completely wrong. List building is a science. First, you need to pick the right databases. In many cases, it's better to go for a database that isn't overly saturated. Second, you want to make sure that you're using the right keywords, including proper inclusion and exclusion keywords, along with the correct industry filters and job titles. So to give a concrete example, sometimes people will use a keyword like CEO, but that keyword will also include assistant of CEO because the keyword is technically there in that job title. So you can't always just blindly trust databases and the actual keywords that you put into these databases. And this is why we like to use AI in the list building process. So first, we use an internal AI agent to generate database-specific keywords so we know the searches are accurate. And secondly, we use AI for pre-qualification. If we have a large list, we run the entire list through AI that researches every single lead and qualifies them based on our ideal customer profile that we're looking to target in that particular campaign. It's also a great idea to use AI to find niche-specific databases because that can help you uncover more unique data. So one idea for doing this is going into ChatGPT's deep research feature and then just asking it to basically dig up specific databases or directories that you can use for your particular ICP. But I want to also give some general recommendations when it comes to the databases that you choose. Now, if you're targeting really broadly, you can go for a broad database like Apollo or LinkedIn Sales Navigator. But I always think it's really important to do the AI pre-qualification play that I talked about just a moment ago, and you can use clay.com for this purpose. Now, if your targeting is more specific, again, I would recommend using AI or using a well-known database within your niche. So to give a few examples, if you're targeting software companies or funded companies, a go-to choice could be Crunchbase. If you're targeting e-commerce brands, you can use StoreLeads, which is the largest e-commerce database in the world. If you're targeting local businesses, you can use Google Maps and then enrich that data through a tool like Clay. If you're looking for companies using a specific technology, you can use BuiltWith, which is a database that allows you to filter for specific technologies that companies are using. And if you want to look for people that have a very specific intent signal, So maybe they posted something on LinkedIn, for example. You can use a tool like Trigify. Now, once you have your final list, I always recommend double verifying your data. So you don't want to rely on the verification filters on databases. You want to use a tool like Million Verifier to confirm that these are actually valid email addresses. If you don't do that, you're going to have a very high bounce rate, and it's going to harm the sending reputation of the domains that you're sending emails from. Now, this next part of the video is going to be a huge game changer for most people, and it's how to structure your offer. So let's talk about it. And this is probably the second most important thing, I would say, list building being the most important one. But if your offer isn't attractive to cold traffic, your list building is not going to matter because you're not going to be able to book meetings. A common mistake is sending a bunch of emails with a very vague offer. So basically just naming your main service and then expecting people to respond. And that rarely actually works. Your offer has to be designed specifically for cold traffic in the vast majority of cases if you're an agency. So you need to ask yourself the question, how can I make this email a no-brainer for the prospect? And for marketing agencies, that often means bringing upfront value. So for example, that could be a genuinely valuable audit with real actionable steps and not just a disguised sales call. Could also be a piece of free work. So maybe you analyze their website and complete a small part of your service for free. I recently actually bought from somebody that cold emailed me, and the reason why I bought was because they delivered real upfront value before asking for anything, and that worked on me, so I know that it will work on other people as well. It could also be an asset, so maybe you create a free YouTube video for them or a free ad creative or something similar to that. Now, I wouldn't be afraid to give away free value because it will dramatically increase your conversion, and the time you invest can have a very high return on investment because it vastly increases your chances of landing high LTV customers. Another type of offer that works well is a guarantee, and guarantees have always been around and probably always will because they're attractive, especially for cold prospects that don't necessarily trust you. So essentially a guarantee is a bridge of trust where you can have cold prospects actually trust you because they have some sort of guarantee that you will fulfill whatever you claim to do. Now, some examples of bad offers is, as I mentioned before, just naming your main service. It could also be a weak lead magnet that isn't actionable, like a boring white paper that nobody's gonna read. And it's also very important to test different offers. So don't just pick one and stick with that forever. You should be conducting A/B tests to see which type of offers generate the most positive responses. And with a tool like Instantly.ai that we use, and we're actually one of their recommended agency partners, you can A/B test different types of messaging and variations and quickly determine from the data what is working and what is not. And by the way, if you're looking for a company to basically manage all of this, so set up the system, write the copy, and help you position your offer for cold traffic, you can book a meeting with me below and I can help you out. So if you're interested in that, check out the link. But in any case, back to the video. So next up are the scripts, and scripts are obviously a very important part because this is where you present your offer. If the message itself is weak, it can often ruin a strong offer. And there's really no one-size-fits-all approach to cold email messaging. It will depend heavily on your industry, but I can give some general advice on what we've seen work according to our tests. So first of all, in most cases, it is best to keep it simple. People tend to overcomplicate their messaging, but that's rarely actually worth it. It's easy to fall into the expert's fallacy, which is basically you assuming that people are as knowledgeable as you are about the field that you're in, but this is rarely actually the case. Most prospects just want a simple value proposition. So instead of diving into the technical details of how your system works, just focus on the actual outcome and keep it very simple so even a 12-year-old could understand the actual value. So for example, in my case, it's probably better for me to say that I can book people meetings rather than going on a long rant about email deliverability or the technical differences between Microsoft and Google infrastructure when it comes to cold outreach. In most cases, you want to lead with benefits, but there are exceptions to this rule. If all your competitors are claiming the same benefits, it might help to mention a unique mechanism, but generally speaking, simplicity will win and benefits are better to mention than features. Another important part is presenting a tangible outcome with a specific timeline. Prospects only spend around 3 to 5 seconds reading your email, so they need to immediately be able to almost visualize in their head what the result is. So if your email does not accurately display that, it's already going to be a bad email just because of that fact. So a simple structure could be, we help you get X result in Y time frame without C, and C here being some sort of bad thing that they want to avoid. And from our data, again, over 10 million cold emails sent, shorter emails tend to perform better. So try to keep your emails below 50 words. And if you have more to say, just save it for the follow-up emails. You should also include relevant case studies and mention similar companies that you've worked with and the exact results that you achieved for those companies. This is a no-brainer. It's going to massively increase your positive response rate. So if you're not already doing that, you need to do it immediately. And finally, the call to action needs to be extremely clear. So don't include multiple call to actions in one email. Also match the call to action to your actual offer. If your offer is saturated and you haven't clearly differentiated yourself, it's hard to justify asking for a call immediately. And in that case, offer to send over free value first or simply ask if they're interested and then continue the conversation from there. Now, let's talk about setting up the system. So at ScaleSprint, we always recommend a multi-channel approach. Most prospects have a preferred channel. Some people live in email, others are always on LinkedIn, and you want to meet them where they're most active. The best way to do this is with a waterfall prospecting method. So essentially, you want to reach out via email first, and then for those that don't respond on email, you want to follow up on LinkedIn. After implementing this across all our clients here at ScaleSprint, we've seen a massive boost in meetings booked. And as a piece of quick advice, right now there's a strong integration between Instantly.ai and HeyReach, which are two of the tools we use. So Instantly is for cold email, HeyReach is for LinkedIn. So you can set up an automation where leads are automatically contacted on LinkedIn if they do not respond on email. Now, LinkedIn is not as technical, but for email, you have to be a little bit technical. So for email infrastructure, we recommend basically creating a decentralized setup. And that means having multiple domains. And under each domain, we have multiple email accounts. And this protects your main domain and spreads the risk across the infrastructure. And then you can quickly rotate any domains that get blacklisted or have a reduction in their sending reputation. Now, those email accounts that we set up are connected to Instantly.ai's automation, and that is essentially how we're able to send thousands of emails every single day. Now, after that, you want to connect your LinkedIn account to HeyReach through the cloud, which allows automated connection requests and messaging. Now, again, this is quite technical, so I don't want to go into all the details of setting up the email infrastructure and setting up the integration, but the principles here are the most important thing. You need to find a way to contact prospects on multiple different channels and create an integrated flow where it acts as a waterfall prospecting system. The next part is follow-ups and appointment setting. Now, these are critical. You need to set appointments quickly and consistently follow up with leads who don't respond. The gold is in the follow-ups. That's absolutely true when people use this saying. So starting with appointment setting, speed to lead is absolutely crucial, especially in 2026. You just need to be able to respond fast. And this is also backed up by numerous scientific papers, such as a Harvard Business Review study that showed that you can increase conversions by over 300% if you call a lead within 1 minute. These are real stats. This is real data from studies. So you should focus heavily on optimizing speed to lead. In an ideal setup, someone is actively monitoring all these inboxes and immediately responds or calls all interested leads. For our clients here at ScaleSprint specifically, we use Instantly's AI that is able to identify the interest of leads. And then this system basically sends a message to Slack. And then we have an appointment setter ready to immediately call that prospect and also send them an email. Now, when it comes to the next part, which is follow-ups, you shouldn't just stop at one email. Consistent follow-up is the key. So if someone has expressed interest, you have to keep following up with them until they explicitly say no. And we've booked meetings 4 to 6 months after the prospect initially showed interest. Some prospects are just really slow, and that's fine, but you need to be able to stay top of mind and not give up after a few follow-ups. For all clients at ScaleSprint, we also implement something called TAM recycling. So essentially, we map out their entire total addressable market, and then we re-engage it every single quarter with new sequences. That way, we stay top of mind for all the prospects in your entire total addressable market throughout the entire year. And this basically means that cold outreach becomes a very predictable long-term lead generation channel. Now, it is an aggressive approach, but it's extremely effective. It's how we consistently help clients generate 20 to 60 sales calls per month throughout the entire year. And we've had many clients where we've done this over the years and it keeps working. The KPIs are the same because prospects just tend to forget that you exist, and then you can just reach out to them again with a new sequence in the next quarter. So that's going to be it for this video here. If you're interested in ScaleSprint building and managing this system for you, you can book a call with me below. Check out the description and the pinned comments. So in any case, thanks for watching and have a good day.